Welcome to the recorded version of Keeping Seniors Active and Engaged Through Volunteering, part of the Family Caregiver Support webinar series brought to you by the American Society on Aging and a generous sponsorship from Homestead Senior Care.
Our presenter today is Molly Carpenter. Author, speaker, trainer, and family caregiver, Molly Carpenter brings years of personal and professional senior care experience and training to families dealing with dementia care. In her current role, Molly works with a team responsible for ensuring that Homestead Senior Care's network's 60,000 caregivers worldwide have the resources necessary to effectively provide quality care in the home and understand the importance of their work enhancing the lives of those they serve. Molly holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Family Science with a gerontology specialization from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and a master's degree in education with a gerontology specialization from the University of Nebraska-Omaha. And with that, I would like to turn the floor over to our presenter, Molly Carpenter. Thanks for joining us today, Molly.
Thank you so much, Steve, for that warm welcome and introduction. And welcome all of our participants to today's webinar. I'm so excited to be here and to be doing these sessions this year with the American Society on Aging. Now, I love today's topic because not only are we going to talk about, senior volunteerism, but all of the benefits of volunteering. And this is one of those topics that we don't talk about as much, or maybe we don't think about, but it has so many benefits that after this webinar, hopefully all of us are encouraging this type of activity more to all of our friends and families and our clients that we work with every day. Now, as I do these webinars this year, if you're going to be a regular participant, you'll get to know me pretty well, and you'll know and soon discover that one of my passions is around aging well and healthy aging. Now, when we think about healthy aging, I'm sure a lot of you are immediately going right to exercise and nutrition, which are very, very important in healthy aging. But when you think about volunteering and you think about engaging in your community and you stay social and you give back to the world, these are also all components of healthy aging. So I'm so excited to present this topic to you today. Now, as we get started, let's start with the snapshot of some of the numbers that we've gathered around this topic. There's some important numbers that we want to start with just to give you a feel for how some of the content that we're going to cover today. Now, according to a national study conducted by the Homestead Senior Care Network, 52% of older adult volunteers, they do this through unpaid community service. And the great news is they have no plans to stop, with 7 out of 10 of those folks saying that they plan on volunteering forever, which is really great news, and you'll see why in a few slides. 1 in 5 of these older adults said that he or she started volunteering at the age of 65 or older. And then most of these folks, about 97%, say that their volunteer work is either very important or it's the most important thing that they do, which is phenomenal. That is such great news, and it's great comments that we heard on this survey. So where do they volunteer? Well, senior volunteers donate an average of about 15 hours a month to many diverse causes, including places such as their local churches, schools, hospitals, senior centers, and nonprofit organizations. And we're going to get into all those a little bit later during the webinar. But without a doubt, these older adults are doing great service that helps many, many people in their communities. But there's an added bonus. Their volunteerism provides important health benefits to them as well. Nearly all older adult volunteers say they feel better emotionally and physically. And 95% of older adult volunteers feel that older adults who volunteer are happier and healthier than those who do not. So those are some really great numbers, a great snapshot of what we're about to dive into today. But let's look at the objectives for today's session as we move to the next slide. During this webinar, we're going to discuss several important things that are related to senior service and senior volunteerism. First, we're going to talk about the impact of the service that these seniors are doing and the impact on the local communities and all these organizations. Then we're going to talk about the health benefits that stem from volunteerism on the actual person that commits to doing these 15 hours a month. And then we're going to end by reviewing some of the tips on how adults and these senior volunteers can inspire that next generation to volunteer. And at the close, you will get a list of volunteering resources, because I'm a firm believer in, as we go through these contents, we always want you to have resources so that you can share them with the different clients and seniors that you come across. So this list will be very important, and we'll go over those at the very end of the session. So let's first talk about the impact of this service that these senior volunteers are doing on our local communities as we go to the next slide. Now, the Corporation for National and Community Service says that between 2008 and 2010, 18.7 million older adults contributed on average more than 3 billion hours of service in their communities per year. Now, I don't know about all of you, but 3 billion hours is a lot of service, and I can't even quantify in my head what 3 billion hours looks like, but I just know that it's a lot of service that these older adults are giving. Here's the great number, too. The yearly economic benefit of this service to our nation equaled more than $64 billion. That is such a phenomenal stat, and I love that we can equate the service hours that they're giving to an economic benefit as well. Now, the number of older adults who volunteer is astounding, and their service is having an enormous impact on their quality of life, on the community, and on the economy. So let's look at where the impact of this service is felt as we go to the next slide. So we mentioned earlier that the Home Instead Senior Care Network conducted its own national survey and found that nearly half of volunteers who are retired say they are busier now than when they were working. I don't know if a lot of you have talked to your family members that maybe have retired or some of the seniors you come across, but I've definitely heard that from quite a few retirees. It's great, though, because they're a lot busier, but they're giving their time still. Now, we talked about earlier how older volunteers are giving 15 hours of service each month. That's an average number. And they're engaged in places, for example, let's start with churches. Now, some of the responsibilities at the churches that they do, it's a variety of things, but probably one of the biggest ones is around food distribution. And you think about this, some examples could include maybe they're making baked goods for the local festival, the church festival every year, or maybe they're the group of ladies that puts on the funeral luncheon after a funeral happens at their church. You know, I recently had a loved one pass away, and that is exactly what happened. We called the church, and we got the name of the Ladies Guild. We talked to them about how many people were coming, and they organized this group of 20 ladies that all, contributed food and their time and energy into putting on a funeral luncheon. Just one more thing that the family did not have to worry about. So there's tremendous opportunities at churches, and they're helping tremendously at these different churches. Another place that the senior volunteers are volunteering at are schools. There's a lot, again, another variety, a lot of things that they could be doing at a school. A lot of times we think about it as a sort of a companionship type role where maybe they are being interviewed for a school project from somebody about a topic or about what it was like to grow up when they were growing up in their era. Or maybe it's they come in and do a presentation about a topic that they're familiar with. Another one might be just being at the school, to greeting the children, working in the office for administrative stuff, maybe even working in the lunchroom. So lots of opportunities in the schools. Hospitals. I know we're all familiar probably with our hospitals and the volunteer group that they have at the hospitals. They do many activities there as well. They do some fundraising for the hospital and the local community. Maybe they're the people at the front desk when somebody's coming to visit a patient. They direct them to the room. All types of different things that these hospital volunteers do as well. And then senior centers. It's interesting when we're looking at the survey and the results of the survey, you think seniors go to senior centers, so do seniors volunteer at senior centers? Well, they do. And some of the things that they do at senior centers is around teaching special skills or doing different training around different topics that they might be experts in. I think it's important, an example might be or around if they what I've seen at our local senior center is there's a group of ladies who know how to do a certain dance. And so they come in once a month and show the other participants how to do the dance. So it's usually around a teaching or it's a special skill or trait that they have that they're sharing with their other local seniors, which is tremendous. And then a lot of senior volunteers are volunteering at nonprofits. And they're doing a variety of things at nonprofits, a lot of administrative work, maybe some things around mailings or stuffing envelopes, different things like that. I think about the local Red Cross in our community. We have a senior volunteer who calls and asks us to sign up for the blood drive. So there's a lot of different opportunities at the nonprofits where senior volunteers are spending their time. Now, the other thing about these places and where these seniors are choosing to volunteer is that they also choose to donate money sometimes to these organizations. So not only are they donating their time, but they're donating dollars and financially to these organizations as well. Now, many of older adults say that the availability of more time when they retire in their lives is just one reason why they volunteer. But more importantly, they say that they want to help others and they want to offer that meaningful assistance and really make a difference in their communities. And I have a great story about a gentleman that I just met over this holiday season. I was taking some local items to our local St. Vincent de Paul, which St. Vincent de Paul is just an organization that they have a thrift store for people who need, it's very low-cost items. And they do a lot of other things. But as I was dropping off my items, there was a gentleman there, and he seemed pretty young, and I asked him about his experience there. And he said to me that he had just retired 4 years ago, and he volunteered that he was 65. And I asked him, why do you volunteer now, knowing that I was going to do this webinar here in a few weeks? And he said to me, I had a great job and a great career my whole life. He had worked at a cable company, and he was a project manager, and he basically, when they had a new service, he rolled it out to customers. So he said it was very satisfying. I helped a lot of people. It was a really good job. But when he retired, this is what he said to me. He said, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help people that needed help. I wanted to give back to my community. And he sort of made it sound like he had done a great job, but now it was time to really make a difference. And I just thought that was amazing. So, again, yes, he had more time, and that's why he chose to start volunteering, but it was more than that. It was all about providing that meaningful assistance and really making a difference in the community. Now, when we asked how volunteering compares to other things in their lives, the older adults from the research said that volunteering is among the most important thing that they do. And we said earlier that these seniors and these senior volunteers, they plan on volunteering forever, which is really great news to all of these organizations. So now that we know how senior volunteers impact the community, let's look at some of the benefits on the person that gives their time. So as we go to the next slide, we look at the reasons why people volunteer. On the Homestead Network survey, the respondents were asked, why do they do this? And of course, we've talked about how they love helping others and giving back. That's the number one reason. And when they noted that answer, it was also things like, it makes me feel good, which is a very positive feeling for all of these senior volunteers. Being an example for the younger generation, that was an interesting response, and we saw it over and over again. And it's so important, and they had this sense of that we need this younger generation. They need to understand how important it is to continue to contribute to the community and to help others in need. It's more of a lesson in serving and serving each other and serving others, and to not only think of yourself. So when we asked why these seniors volunteered, that was at the top of the list. We've talked about making a difference in their community already during this webinar. And then one of the other important notes that we found in the research was that they provide assistance to causes that they care about. So when they go to volunteer, they pick an area or an organization that they already have that's important to them and that they want to impact positively. And I think that goes back to the point about that's why they contribute financially as well. They're really passionate about where they're choosing to volunteer at. For example, if we have somebody that maybe has somebody in their life that had breast cancer or some type of cancer, they probably will choose to volunteer at the breast cancer organization or one of the other cancer organizations to give their time there and give their money there. They also noted that socialization is very important when you're volunteering, and that's one of the reasons they do it as well. They get out of the house, they meet their friends, they meet new people. Socializing is very, very important, and they noted that that's one of the reasons that why they do this and take part in volunteer activities. Let's look a little bit closer at some of those emotional benefits that come out of volunteering as we go to the next slide. Some of the comments in the research said that community service defines who they are. Now think about this for a minute. 98% of the volunteers said that it gives them a sense of purpose and it provides an opportunity to share their skills and experience. Defining who you are and giving a sense of purpose, that is just amazing, and it's very tremendous when you think about volunteering. That's why this topic is so exciting, because when you hear those things, you think, wow, why don't we encourage more people to do this, or why don't I do this myself? So having a sense of purpose can really lead to having that meaningful life or having meaning in life. So when we think about this topic and how volunteering can help define and give a person a sense of purpose, one could argue that volunteering is an important aspect to aging well. Now, let's think about when you share your skills with somebody and you're sharing your experience. You know how you feel when you have a special gift or a special skill that you can share with someone. I always think about one of my really good friends who's a great decorator, and I invite her over to help me figure out paint colors and accessories, and she tries to teach me, and I tell her all the time she has a special gift, and that really helps her. It makes her feel good. And so having that sense of contribution and teaching, you feel good, and you're hopefully passing on a skill. You know, one example I have from my career is that I worked in a retirement community, and we had a monthly birthday party. And one of the ladies that was having the birthday party, her best friend wanted to help make the cake for the party. So her friend, who was also a resident, made this beautiful birthday cake and used this special frosting, the divinity frosting recipe. And so we're serving the cake, and there was about 2 or 3 daughters of other residents came up to me and said, "Where did you get this cake? I need this. I love this cake, and I want this recipe. I love this frosting." And I said, "Well, our one of our residents made the cake. And so they said, "Oh, you're kidding me." And I said, "Yeah," and she made the frosting, and it's a really special frosting. So I went up to this resident, and I told her how these 3 gals were very excited and loved her cake. And she said, "Well, that's really sweet." And then I asked her if she would share the recipe. And she said, "Molly, I'll do more than that. I would like to show them, I'd be happy to show them how to make this frosting." So the daughters accepted immediately, and they were very excited. So one day on a Saturday, we came in, and we brought the 3 daughters and the daughter of the person who was making the frosting, and she walked them through step by step on how to make this special divinity frosting. And the ladies were taking notes, and that she, I almost wish we would have filmed it because it was beautiful the way this woman was. You could see the pride in her as she was passing down a recipe and a skill that was so important to her and her family. And those feelings really added to her feeling of that hope, that meaning in life and having this meaningful life. So her daughter, watching her mom train these other ladies on how to do this was phenomenal. She was so proud of her mother. So I like to use examples like that where it's not really a formal volunteer position, but it really is just volunteering your time to share your skills with somebody else. Now let's think about sharing your experience. Senior volunteers, they don't always have this special skill of making divinity frosting, for example. But I think about veterans a lot when I think about sharing experiences and how they share their story a lot and they share their experiences, especially to the younger generation. It's really valuable that they pass on that information. Now, again, another example of maybe a non-veteran experience is, again, I worked with a woman who was a member of the local symphony, and it was her life, this symphony. And many schools asked her to come and speak to them and share her experiences about working in the symphony. They wanted to know, what was it like to perform in front of thousands of people? And they wanted to know all about her tour experiences in all the places all around the world she went. She didn't go in to teach them how to play the violin. She was just sharing her experiences about being in the symphony. Now, other older adults in the survey, again, we talked about how they enjoy the socialization. There's many socialization aspects of volunteering. In fact, more than 40% said that they typically volunteer with someone else. And I think of an example in our community. We have a hospice house where people on hospice can go and get care. And there's a group of ladies, there's 3 or 4 of them. Every Thursday they get together and they make cookies for the entire community, for the residents, for families, for visitors. And it's one of those situations where, yes, they love to make cookies. They're really good at it. But they do it every week and each week with each other because they catch up on their life and they talk about what's happening. And it's their time, their 2 or 3 hours of the week where they're connecting with their friends and also doing a really good thing for this hospice organization. And at the stage in life when numbers of friends may be dwindling, 92% of older adults said that volunteering is the way to make new friends. And as the person ages, we all know that they're at risk for isolation. So volunteering gives many seniors a reason to walk out the door each morning and visit with friends. Now let's talk about how volunteering can help reduce the stress from our chronic symptoms. When a person experiences something chronic, we all know, you tend to focus on it. But if you have a wonderful and positive distraction like volunteering, people can experience a better mental outlook. In fact, 7 out of 10 older adults say that they overcame feelings of depression by volunteering. And this was also true among those that answered the survey that had the chronic conditions. Now, when I worked in adult daycare in high school, we had a senior volunteer named Margaret, and she had terrible osteoarthritis. She was in a lot of pain on a regular basis. And I asked her one day, why did she come and help serve lunch to all these people when she didn't feel good? I always just wanted her to sit down and let us help her. And she told me that it was a distraction. Bottom line, she said that the people there needed her more and that she could be there for them for a few hours each day. So it's examples like that where it's the idea where you put somebody's needs before your own. You know, something else happens to you when you do that. These volunteers end up feeling better physically, emotionally, and mentally themselves. So let's look at the next slide about the physical benefits that these senior volunteers may feel. Now, we talked about how volunteering has the positive effect on the stress of chronic conditions with my example with Margaret. But what about physically? Well, from the Home Instead survey, 3/4 of older adult volunteers who suffer from chronic health conditions such as arthritis or diabetes, depression, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease say that staying active through volunteering helps them better manage their health problems. The person is staying active, they're getting out, and they're moving around. When a chronic disease is better managed, it can help the person live longer, bottom line. And with the physical and emotional benefits of volunteering, you can start to see the correlation, how they have the same impact as exercising and eating well. All can impact that healthy aging. Now, a lot of this is due to that increased activity, up and about and moving around, not just staying at home, sitting on the chair, watching TV. And this was, again, Margaret. She was on her feet. She was serving lunch. She was pouring water. She was cleaning trays. She was staying active, and she was moving around. And she's, at that age, being a young high schooler, you don't understand all of this yet. And that was the deal. She said it helped her to move around. That's what helped her symptoms. So it was a stress reliever for her, and it had a lot of physical benefits as well. Now, in the survey, 95% of the older adult volunteers feel that when you volunteer, you are healthier and happier than those who don't. And these findings are also supported by the Corporation for National Community Service, which found that those who volunteer have lower mortality rates, greater functional ability, and lower rates of depression later in life. Tremendous, tremendous benefits. And as we said, it's also a stress reliever, and it also may provide a distraction to some of the chronic conditions that they may face. And let's think about when you learn new skills. With the opportunity to learn something new, it really helps all of our cognitive functioning and our cognitive levels. We have all heard and read so much about the benefits of keeping the mind active. Well, volunteering can present that opportunity to learn new skills. For example, I was working in a wellness program for adults 55 and plus, and we taught computer classes to older adults, from basic to advanced to Photoshop and using your camera, all those things. And I had one gentleman in that really early beginner class who was always helping his neighbor during class. And this went on for those 4 sessions. It happened every session. So before the next set of classes started, I asked him if he would be willing to be my assistant while I taught, and asked him to do a volunteer position. And I explained to him that with both of us covering the room, we could be a lot more efficient in class and that the participants would learn more. And he agreed. And not only did he love to be the helper and volunteer, but he learned so much more about computers than maybe he ever wanted to know. So he stayed after class, and he had so many questions, and we spent hours together just reviewing and talking about all the different things with this computer that he was just learning and understanding. So all of that, learning all those new computer skills and new computer tricks and the ins and outs of using a computer was helping his cognition and his brain energy and everything just making him sharper. He was using his brain. So it was a tremendous opportunity for him. Now, older adults not only strengthen their communities, but as you have seen, that they also provide important health benefits to themselves, both emotionally and physically. So we've kind of talked about the benefits to the community. We've talked about the emotional and physical benefits to the person, but there's one more area that can benefit, and that is being an example to the next generation. So as we go to the next slide, the survey noted that a majority of older adult volunteers said that they are volunteering more now because they want to give back, but also because the need's greater due to a poor economy. But evidence is there that supports that the call to volunteering is passed on from generation to generation. And in the Homestead research, a majority of the senior volunteers said they learned the importance of volunteering from their parents' community service. So I think that's really, it was an interesting information that came out of the survey. And it's something to really consider. But many older adults, approximately 40%, also typically share their experience. And like we said, it can most of the time be a friend. But the respondents also said that they have encouraged their children to give back to their communities as well. So they're making a conscious effort. 40% of them already are trying to talk to their kids and grandkids about the importance of giving back to their communities. It's important, too, for these senior volunteers to not only pass on the wisdom of the importance of volunteering, but they themselves need to share their skills and talents and the experience with that younger generation. And many of these people, these seniors, they've spent a lifetime in careers in lots of different areas, or they're maybe they have excellent domestic skills, or they have tremendous creative skills, and they're happy to share that with others. So it's important to this is just another way to make the connection between the generations. So how do older adults go about encouraging that younger generation's participation? Well, obviously we start with talking about it. They said that they tell their grandchildren all about it. They tell them what they do and why they do it. They tell them why it's important, and they tell them how it makes them feel. Just that alone starts the conversation and gets the younger person thinking about these opportunities. It's also appropriate, a lot of them said, that they invite the younger person to join them in the activity. Some of the participants even said that they will try to find a volunteer opportunity that would interest both the younger person and the senior volunteer. I think about that with my own grandmother. She would bake cakes for the church for the festivals, and she would have me help her bake cakes and pies and all those things, and I would go with her to drop off the cakes. It taught me at a really young age how good it felt to help and how it was all of our jobs to help out these different organizations. And by giving someone the opportunity to directly see and experience how volunteering can make a difference in others, it's really the best way to encourage them to do it. You see it happening and you feel the benefits. Most of the time, that's all you need to be a volunteer for the rest of your life and understand the importance of it. So it's also important that when a younger person does get involved with volunteering or community service, we got to tell people. We got to let their parents know, their teachers, and other adults that they may be working with how engaged this person is with the service experience. I think a lot of organizations do a great job of recognizing the younger volunteers when they do commit to things. And even I think about in grade school, our 8th grade class organized a walk for the homeless. And the organizers, the kids who really had the idea and organized it, got special recognition. That's important for them to understand and to keep wanting to do this volunteer. It's also important to really share how happy and proud you are of this person as they engage in service, and it really helps to pass that torch. It also builds up their self-esteem, right? And it builds the importance of helping others. So at one of my previous positions, again, at the retirement community, I had a young man come in one day and volunteer at the senior living community where I worked. And it was in the summer, which we get a lot of volunteers to come around the holiday time, but this was just randomly in the summer. And he said he wanted to lead a book club. He didn't know if it would actually be a book club where there would be 3 or 4 people reading a book and then discussing, but maybe he would even just read a chapter to a group of people and then pause and discuss it, and then next time read another chapter. So he came monthly, and he got a really good group together. And it was phenomenal. The 5 residents that regularly attended this loved it. And I asked him one day, what inspired him to do this? Because, again, it was sort of out of the blue that this younger person just came in and said, you know what, I want to do a book club. So he told me that he was from a small town and that it seemed like neighbors were always helping each other out. So when he moved to a bigger city, he wanted to get that hometown feel, and he felt like the best way to do that was to volunteer in a retirement type community. He said that he looked up to all of those elders in his community and looked up to them, how they were giving back to their community and volunteering and helping the neighbors in needs, and he strived to be more like them. So it's a great example of how these older volunteers are influencing the younger generation, and they're doing it sometimes on purpose, but sometimes they're setting good examples and really having an impact on that younger generation. So let's talk about homebound seniors on the next slide. And what about homebound seniors? Are there opportunities for them to volunteer? And the answer is yes, absolutely. There's a couple of different ways. There's the National and Community Service Resource Center is a great place to start with opportunities. The Resource Center is part of a network of organizations that provide training and technical assistance to a variety of programs. So some of the examples that I've noted on the slide are things like knitting or crocheting lap robes for nursing home residents. Or maybe it's knitting or crocheting blankets for newborns in the hospital. Lots of things like that. Or maybe they work with schools on different projects. I saw an example of where a senior helped to organize a phone a friend program for the neighborhood, for the kids that were coming home and having an hour to themselves before the parents got home. Maybe there is assisting with researching the neighborhood. And I think about our local art museum who does a feature on a neighborhood maybe a couple times a year. And I actually had a cousin volunteer there this summer, and I asked her, how do they get all the pictures and all the stories and all the information? And she said, well, we have a lot of that archived, but a lot of times we have seniors that come in and tell us about their neighborhood. And so I think this would be such a great project to call seniors and talk to them about their neighborhoods, talk to them about the community, what buildings used to be there. What a cool project. And it's something I don't know if we think about enough at all of our communities. Another example I saw was helping nonprofits with bulk mailings. Nonprofits, they send out newsletters a lot. They send out thank you cards, all kinds of things. So what they would do is bring over a big tub of mail, and the person can either put the stamps on, they could seal it, maybe if their handwriting was good, they could address it. So lots of opportunities to help with nonprofits, and bulk mailings is just one example. And again, all of those resources, or this homebound resource is the nationalserviceresources.org, that last bullet you see there on the slide. So let's look at the other resources that are available as we go to the next slide. The first one is the Corporation for National and Community Service. That's a federal agency that engages more than 5 million Americans in service through Senior Corps, AmeriCorps, and Learn and Serve America. So that's a big one. And then Senior Corps is a separate organization against a federal program that connects more than 400,000 Americans 55 and older for service opportunities. So this is a great organization. They even do training, and they help with different projects in communities, and they offer lots of ways for seniors to get involved and to use their special talents and skills. Volunteer Match is another resource. This one really tries to strengthen the community by making it easier for people and good causes to connect. So the organization offers a variety of online services to support a community of nonprofit and volunteer and business leaders. And this popular service welcomes millions of visitors a year and has become a preferred internet recruiting tool for more than 80,000 nonprofit organizations, so a big one. And then the Foster Grandparent Program. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that one. That was one that when I saw the list and went over the list that really resonated with me in our community. This is volunteers age 55 and plus that connects with children and young people with exceptional needs. So they might help vulnerable children in mentoring or supporting in any way. And then RSVP. This connects volunteers age 55 and over with service opportunities again. And these are things like building houses and working with nonprofits, working to help the environment. So again, another one just designed for 55 and over, this RSVP program. Get Involved, the last one on the list. This is a search engine that is sponsored by the Corporation for National and Community Service, which we've talked about today. And it's also powered by Volunteer Match. So a lot of these they're kind of connected together. But it's one of the largest and most advanced on the Internet. You just enter your area of interest in your zip code and state, and you find opportunities, and thousands come up. So it's an excellent resource as well. So before we go to the questions, I want to go to the last slide, and I really hope that you found today's presentation both helpful and encouraging. We've gone over a lot of information today, and I just want to summarize a few of the main points. First point is that senior volunteers greatly benefit the communities that they live in with the time they give into those organizations, and also it helps in turn economically. The second major point of summary is by volunteering, seniors are also benefiting both emotionally by giving them a sense of purpose, reducing stress and socializing, and physically by keeping them active and maybe even learning a new skill. And the third point is that there are even opportunities for these homebound seniors. Sometimes when you think about volunteering, you only think about going out to an organization, but as we saw a little bit ago, there are opportunities for people that are homebound. And the bottom line is that volunteering has a positive impact on healthy aging, and it's really important to help seniors age well. It's likely that many of you are working with clients and their families who are interested in the things that we've covered in this webinar today. And so I'd like you to consider sharing this information with the people you serve so that they can get involved. If we all take the lead and encourage volunteerism, we can really make a big difference in our communities. So take some time to check out the resources and maybe even make a one sheet that has some of those web addresses on it and encourage people, hand them out to people that might be interested. If we all do our part and encourage volunteerism, we talk about the benefits, we ourselves then are contributing to the greater good and helping everybody age well. So thank you again, and at this point I'd like to turn it back over to Steve and open up the phone lines for questions.
Great. Fantastic presentation, Molly. We'd also like to welcome Erin Albers from Home Instead Senior Care to the line, who is going to be joining us for the Q&A portion of today's web seminar. So welcome, Erin.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's jump right into the questions here. The first question, I work with a nationwide network of volunteers with Parkinson's disease. The majority have some degree of cognitive impairment. Their volunteer work is high-level work involving advocacy in the research process. This presents some unique challenges. The question is, do you have any advice for best supporting older Americans who wish to volunteer but have cognitive impairment? I haven't found a lot of resources, and typically organizations end up only engaging the care partner.
You know, that is a great question. And, Erin, I'm going to share an example that I have that I did not share during the presentation. That is a concern, and it is hard to find those opportunities. I don't think I have a silver bullet answer on this one, but what I will tell you is I had a gentleman that I worked with who was in the early stages of Alzheimer's, and he was a lawyer in his life, so very smart man. And he could tell on and off he would be able to say things like, I'm bored and I want to do more. And so when he had those good moments of clarity, we had to find ways to engage him and keep his mind active and going. So we went down to the local school. There was a school 2 blocks away. It was a preschool. And I just spent some time with the teacher talking about, this person and that they did have Alzheimer's disease. And together we determined that one of the best things that we could have him do is read stories to the little kids right before nap time. And the reason that this worked is because they were familiar stories that he himself as a young father would read to his children when they were trying to take naps and going to bed at night. So it ended up working really well for this situation. But it did take some time to go and find the right person and the right organization to take this on, and it worked out for many months. And there was a point where it didn't work out anymore because of his advancing Alzheimer's disease. So I don't have any, like I said, a place for resources exactly on this topic. But at the same time, if you can, brainstorm and really think about opportunities like that's one example I can share. Erin, I don't know if you've got any resources that I'm not thinking of that maybe could contribute.
Yeah, the only other thing I can think of was a story about a gentleman, again, with Alzheimer's who had gone to his own office every single day, and he wanted to be contributing. He wanted to be giving back. Granted, it was a business that he grew himself. It was his business. But when he got Alzheimer's and got out of it, he wanted to go back and contribute so bad. So his Alzheimer's was pretty progressed. They would literally just have him move papers from one pile into 3 different piles, give a very, very simple thing for him to do, but he was so happy to have some sort of purpose. So even finding something so simple for them to give them that feeling that Molly talked about still contributing through those volunteer efforts.
So I think what Erin and I are saying is that it's going to take a little bit of educating to the person or the company that, it's like an awareness factor. So once I explained to the preschool more about Alzheimer's disease, and once the office understood more about Alzheimer's disease, everybody kind of put their heads together and figured out what might work for this individual person and where they're at. So hopefully that's helpful.
Okay, going back to the survey that you were talking about earlier, can you let us know what the age demographic was on that survey?
Yes, I can. Erin, do you have that handy?
I imagine that it was 65 plus. I'm looking it up right now, too.
We could look that up and send that out and get back to you if you, but it was definitely, I thought it might have been 55 plus, but, here it is. It was 65 and older, and it was, 65 and older.
Okay.
In the U.S. Okay.
Next question here. Molly, can you address cultivating meaningful volunteer opportunities and also helping individuals recognize when they should be stepping down from volunteer activities and they can no longer do them effectively, but they might not necessarily be aware of their current limitations?
Wow. That is a great question. And what I can share with all of you is my example of Margaret at the senior center or at the adult daycare that I worked at. That did become apparent, and she did advance in her osteoarthritis, and she got to the point where she was a little bit grouchy all the time. So she didn't realize that she was being grouchy, and she did not understand that maybe she couldn't do her job as effectively anymore. So it was a very delicate conversation. But one of the things, as the people in charge of the center talked to Margaret about, was they really pointed out how she had changed. So it was more things like, Margaret, we noticed that you're a little bit grouchier. Or not, they didn't say grouchy, but they said, we noticed that your mood has changed, and we noticed that your condition, you seem to be a little bit more in pain more often, and we're concerned about you. And so here are some things. We'd like you to take a little bit of time off, and we want you to consider, like we recommended her to go see a physical therapist or maybe to do some water aerobics. And that, she was welcome to come back and visit, but that when she came back, maybe she could just visit and have lunch and just sit and visit with people. There wasn't a need to have her, taking trays and pouring water and doing all the stuff for the lunch activities. So it's a really delicate conversation. I think it's just making quiet observations in a very gentle way. And Margaret was upset. She was upset at first. She thought she was getting fired from her job. But when we explained to her that we're concerned about her as a person and her condition and what's happening to her, that was how it made it okay. It made it easier. And that was really the truth. We really wanted her to get help. We thought she could benefit from some physical therapy or from some water aerobics. So it was more along the lines of, Margaret, we're concerned about you. And so we'd really like you to take some time and get some help that you might need for your osteoarthritis.
Okay, along with the question part of the web seminar, we do like to share some resources that our attendees send in. So I just want to go ahead and share one of these right here. First of all, thanks for the great information. I've worked with a low-income senior who loved children but wasn't able to babysit due to her health needs. After I connected her to the foster grandparent program, her arthritis symptoms and depression lifted due to the factors you have described. She also was thrilled to be earning a small check. She said it was her first one since 1994, and this brought her a lot of joy and pride to be earning some money again. So I thought that was a great one.
That is a great story. Thank you for sharing that story. That is excellent.
Yeah, and we've got a couple other informational shout-outs here. Just FYI, FGP, RSVP, and SCP are the three programs that make up Senior Corps, which is one part of CNCS. Just put some information out there on there.
Yep.
Again, those are FGP, RSVP, and SCP.
Mm-hmm.
Next question here. My mom is 68 and physically healthy. She's not very active, but she could be if she chose to be. How can I strongly encourage her to get out and volunteer without pushing the subject?
I think what I say would be I would really try to understand mom's interests and, what does she like to do. I think it goes along with all of us. When you're doing something you love, it doesn't feel like work or that you're doing, you just love to do it. So you got to start with what are mom's interests. And maybe you do a little research on your own beforehand. So you do some research around, I know mom loves to bake cookies, I don't know, for example. And so you find some opportunities where she could share her skills and talents. Or the other thought is really talking to mom about how important it is to stay active. And you do it in a loving way where you're not lecturing, but maybe you share with her some of the things you've learned on the webinar today about how helpful it is to living better and aging well.
I think another opportunity. Oh, sorry, Molly. I think another opportunity might be offering for you to do some volunteer work and seeing if she would come with you, and kind of trying some different things out together at first, where you as the daughter can spend some time with your mom and get her interested, and then slowly, if you're able to kind of back out a little bit of those commitments, if you don't have the time to continue to do it, she might just welcome the idea of spending some extra time with you.
I think that's an excellent idea, Erin, and I was thinking about my own mother, and it's sort of the same situation that this person asked us about. And my mom is just unaware of what opportunities are there. So even if I invited her to something I was doing or working on, that was a great suggestion.
There's also, we have some really good resources on our website, caregiverstress.com, where you can look through there, and we have a series on Get Mom Moving, which is kind of having those conversations to encourage that activity, mental, physical, emotional wellness, as well as a program on there called 4070, where it guides you through how to have difficult conversations with your parents. Again, like Molly said, not to upset or lecture, but to engage them in a conversation. So you can check out caregiverstress.com.
Okay, another helpful tip and suggestion here from one of our attendees. If you have someone early in the stages of dementia, referring them to the Alzheimer's Association is a great resource. Most of the chapters have programs for this group of people. Early in the disease, they can do office work, but they can also help with facilitating support groups, volunteering for events, etc. Have either of you had any interactions with or referred volunteers to the Alzheimer's Association, and have they been a resource for you?
They have, absolutely. They're a great resource because they'll often know other opportunities that might work for this person as well. So the Alzheimer's Association is connected with many different organizations in the community, so that is a great suggestion.
Okay, next question here. My mom is a widow and sometimes gets very down on her life and her current situation. I want her to get out there and volunteer to see how the others are struggling and to take the focus off of herself. Do you think that this is an appropriate method to help her out?
I absolutely think this is an appropriate method. I think, again, we talked about how it's a stress reliever, and the research showed that it helps with depression, and it sort of takes your mind off your current situation, what's happening, and you have to focus your attention on something else. So I absolutely think that is an excellent approach, is to encourage volunteering, even if it's just 1 hour a week. Start small, but just getting her interested in some different activities. We also talked about how you meet people and you make new friends. This might be a tremendous opportunity for your mom to get out once a week and just meet some new people, look at a different area, see a different, situation. It's great exposure.
Okay, here's a little bit of a different question. The question is, when I do assessments on older adults, their first goal to reach is to get a job. Doing volunteer work is a great idea for them to get out there and work. Are there any resources where that I can check to see if they can receive some sort of an amount of payment, perhaps a symbolic payment? For a lot of them to pay for transportation, this is a problem. Do you have any ideas about any ways to get maybe some sort of payment out of it?
I think somebody else put a comment in about foster grandparent program. That one, I think there is a little bit of a stipend involved. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
My head also goes directly to finding a job that feels that you love so much it feels like you're a volunteer. And just speaking just from someone from home, instead, a lot of our caregivers say, I feel like a paid volunteer. Like, I can't believe I get paid for this job. If they could go out and find something that they absolutely love, whether it's going and working for a company in a garden or a landscaping place. I know my mom looked into that, and that's a hobby of hers, but she's actually getting paid for it.
That's a good suggestion, Erin.
Okay, well, we are just about out of time for today's web seminar, but I want to thank our presenters today, Molly Carpenter, as well as Erin Albers, for joining us for the Q&A portion. Thanks a lot for joining us today and for a great presentation.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending. We'll see you next month.
Thank you all.